Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
We would like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park's championship meet runs now through March 30th with high-quality action throughout, including the Florida Derby on Saturday, March 29th. Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. Happy to have you on board to take a look at some of the action for this afternoon, which is very good. Certainly down in New Orleans. Looking forward to a big day highlighted by the Lecomte. We'll have plenty of discussion on that. A little bit later on, we'll be joined by Joe Kristufek from the paddock commentary and the pregame show and whatnot down at the fairgrounds. Caught up with him yesterday, and we taped a piece looking at all the stakes action. Do want to alert you before we get into anything. Yesterday, Pick 6 paid 4 out of 6. So there's a Pick 6 carryover at Aqueduct today at $28,000. And I think part of that carryover was due to our friend Steve Bick. Congratulations to Steve Bick, his DT Stables and Company. Gary Siaka, Katie Davis on board. Got up by a snudge in the finale at Aqueduct yesterday with his Landauer at $80.50. So, again, congratulations to Mr. Vic there and everybody else who had it. And as I say, it was a late run from Katie Davis on Landauer and just got up in the shadow of the wire. And as I say, I would think helped push that to carryover territory. So keep that in mind for later today. But also later today, as I said, a lot of stakes on the schedule down at the fairgrounds and over on America's Best Racing. There was a nice little analysis of the Lecomte from our friend Bob Ehalt. So I reached out to Bob to get his thoughts on the Lecomte. He also had some interesting articles recently in the Bloodhorse. We'll hit on some of that as well. Bob, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Seth, and Happy New Year. Happy a little belated, but Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Same to you and yours. And we are making the first steps. Last week was kind of interesting with early steps a couple of weeks ago as we get on the Triple Crown Trail with the calendar turning. We have 3-year-olds now, and today kicks off the 3-year-old series down in New Orleans with the Lecomte. And geez, Bob, this is, a field of 14 scheduled in here. And we'll hear from, again, Joe Kristufek later. I taped it with him. He thought there was a possibility Admiral Dennis may be aimed for another location. So the field may shrink slightly, but it's still, man, it's a big, competitive, fun field. Talking to him, talking to some other people over the past couple of days, and looking at your thoughts, I'm going to be interested to see how the betting plays out and the race plays out. Let's get into the discussion. I used Magnitude on top. I thought the Asmussen horse was a little bit interesting and maybe could turn the tables on Built. Built, I was a little leery. Built's going to be the favorite, but scheduled to leave from the 13 post. We'll see if Scratches may move that one in, but still will be outside. So I use Maximum Promise in my mix from Kenny McPeak. I have Innovator from Wayne Lucas with a little bullet workout up at Oak Lawn coming down from Arkansas. And again, talking to other people, they're using other – it's just going to be a fascinating race to watch. Looking at your article, I'm intrigued with your thoughts on Disco Time for Brad Cox, and we're going to take a look at the second start of the career, second win of the career. This is Disco Time back on November 30th at Churchill, going to be the number 5 horse, getting it done again to run the record to 2 for 2. Steps into Stakes Company this afternoon. And again, looking at your article at America's Best Racing, you're very interested in him. Give me your thoughts on the Lecomte.
Well, I think overall, when you look at it, as I looked at the entries, I kept waiting for the race to end. And well, here's another one, and another one, and another one. I think it kind of shows that maybe this year it's a pretty wide open chase right now for the Kentucky Derby. A lot of people believe that they have a horse who has a possibility, and they want to find out how good it is. That's kind of what this race is going to be. We're going to put together a couple of horses who showed some promise here or there, and which one is starting to get better at the right time. I did like Disco Time. I mean, look, Brad Cox really does well in these Triple Crown preps.
Yeah.
He always he knows where to ship his horses to find the right spot. This is a horse who had two unbeaten in two races at Churchill Downs. Seemed to get a little better with the second one. With continued improvement, certainly it's worth a thought that he's coming off a good speed figure. It's certainly believable that he could get a little better. It's a Juddmonte horse, so it's got some nice pedigree and things behind it. He's one of those horses that you're interested to see. Is this horse somebody to watch? This will be a very good test for him.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, 2 for 2, as you say, Brad Cox and Juddmonte. I looked at him. I easily could have put him in my mix because, as I say, I had 4 horses, but there were 4 others probably that I could have used with the same level of confidence. Another horse you mentioned in the column, and I did a stakes preview with our man from right here at OTB, Mike Callahan. We did a little stakes preview. He liked Calling Card. You have Calling Card as a price, 12-1 on the morning line with Frankie Dettori on board for Mike Maker. And it's another one I easily could have used. That Maiden Breaker, being a New York bred, faced state breds 2 races back up at Aqueduct and wins by 17 lengths.
He did win by 17, which sometimes, when you're talking about a maiden race in mid-November, it could be a weak field. It probably had to be for him to win by 17. But he won with a pretty good figure.
Yeah.
So when you take that into account, and then next time out, they brought him into an allowance race at Oak Lawn, and he probably bounced. He could go forward. I mean, he's got that potential off the main race at Aqueduct to run a nice figure. So maybe this is a race he gets back to it. He's one of about, 5 or 6 of them where you can make a case for this horse to win the race or run a good second. And they're all listed at 10 or 12 to 1. It's going to be interesting to see where the odds actually come out to be. So that's where I could not predict for you, like who's going to be 4th choice or something like that. There's so many possibilities in this race. It really is a good betting race. But a lot of times when you get that, I think we've seen, for all the figuring and all the contrarian thoughts we have, turns out to be the favorites running 1-2.
It is going to be a lot of fun, just the race itself. But as you say, going into the gate to see how the odds shake out in here. And I'm going to be interested to see 3-1 on the morning line, built as the favorite, and is going to take action certainly. I'm going to be interested to see where that one winds up because, again, the post position had me a little concerned there. But we'll see. There's clearly talent. Fun race, the Lecomte. I mentioned earlier you had some nice articles in the Bloodhorse over the past few weeks as well. One of them, you checked in with Chad Brown to get updates on some of his 3-year-olds and where they may be headed early on the Derby path. And the one that attracted me because I really like this horse. I admit every time I talk about him, I'm a little bit of a homer. And that Hopeful was phenomenal, where Flavien Prat loses the irons. And really, the race was kind of over. And then in the stretch, Chancellor McPatrick comes like a freight train and gets it done. And even Flavien Prat in the post-race commentary was kind of surprised at the performance. We're going to take a look subsequently. Another trip where he had a little trouble and had to come from the back of the pack, the Grade 1 Champagne. And then tossed in a little bit of a disappointing effort in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. But you caught up with Chad Brown, and it looks like maybe an excuse in the Breeders' Cup because they went and had a little surgery done subsequently. But Chad's still hoping to get on the Derby trail this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly an extremely talented horse. We saw that. We saw that in the Hopeful. We saw that in the Champagne. We didn't see it in the Juvenile, and maybe there was something there brewing or happened there that might explain it. Because of that, he's a little bit behind. So you got to play catch up, which puts you into the position. Everything's got to go right.
Yeah.
You don't have if you have a little setback now, well, now it's getting pretty tight. You might have to point for the Preakness. You might have to point for the Belmont, or just scrap plan A of the Triple Crown and start looking at the Haskell and races like that. So we'll see. I think he still feels that that's his number one hopeful. And like I say, I think the Tampa Bay Derby, it's a race he did win last year. But he also pointed out and said, but that horse did have a race. I believe he ran in the Holy Bull before. So starting out it's going to be interesting to see if everything can go 100% of the way he needs it to go with that horse.
Yeah, and that's kind of key. It does seem like it has to really go 100% for him to get there. But his game plan, Tampa Bay Derby, and then possibly the Bluegrass. Now, he got 10 points out of the Champagne for the Derby. 10 points is unlikely to get you in. So he would need something in one of those other races, certainly. But we'll see. And as I say, I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed here that he does get on the trail, because he was just phenomenal. I had a chance the night of the hopeful closing night. I was downtown and ran into his owner, Sean Flanagan, who came over and introduced himself and watches the show. And he was very nice. So kind of rooting for that one, certainly. Also, you had an article, and I was talking before we went on the air. I wanted to touch on this because I've mentioned it the past few weeks. I said, if you're going to look back at 2024 and pick the best race of the year, I think it was, again, I'm a homer, it was right up the street. I think it was the Travers. And the staff at the Bloodhorse did over the last week or so of the season put together a top 10 amongst the staff. And the top 5 races of the year, I think you nailed a great top 10. But the top 5, the Jaipur, which was that just eye-popping performance from Cogburn, the Belmont Stakes up here at Saratoga with Dornoch, Breeders' Cup Classic, certainly with Sierra Leone, the Kentucky Derby. But the number one race, the Travers, and Bob, I couldn't agree more, because how often does not just a horse race, but a sporting event just not live up to the hype? So when they do, it's just extra exciting. And this one did. We're watching the stretch run here, Fierceness out in front, but Torpedo Anna finally gets going. And it was a heartbreaking defeat for those of us who were on Torpedo Anna that day. But again, living up to the hype. Kenny McPeak making the right decision to go in the Travers. He said, I might make both races better, the Alabama and the Travers. I think he did. And I think this was a great pick by you guys as the top race of the year.
Yeah, I think what it kind of showcases a little bit is the definition of the word race. Well, what are you looking for in a race? Now, I will say this. I think the best actual, if you're going to talk about a race as that final battle to the wire, the Kentucky Derby probably was the best. You got 3 noses at the wire in the Kentucky Derby, and I've been watching races for quite a long time. Even with the great HD and all the stuff you have from NBC, I couldn't tell who was second, who was third, who won the race. It was really that tight. But the drama, the anticipation, like I say, when the Phillies decided to come, it made it a real. It made it a race we were kind of looking forward to see. And was Fierceness going to finally put together 2 good races? Maybe finally does Sierra Leone get the pace that he wanted? Because, I mean, certainly when you look back, I think to all of us that day, the amount of money Sierra Leone took in the race really was kind of surprising that people were thinking, oh, this is his race. But all of the intangibles that went into the the anticipation and all of the pre-race handicapping and everything, the race really it changed so much in that final eighth of a mile, because I think at the mid-stretch you thought Fierceness got this, and then all of a sudden the Phillies started coming and coming and coming. And you think, I don't think she gets it. And then you thought for like two or three strides, she might get there. And as it turned out, she did. But it did turn out to be a good, exciting race on the racetrack. It had the anticipation. It had the quality horses. I mean, you had the horses who ran. You had the horse of the year in Torpedo Anna, and you had the horses who would wind up running 1-2 in the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yeah.
So you had quality horses. It had basically everything you would want.
And you mentioned the odds, and people may not remember, Sierra Leone did go off as the 8-5 favorite. Fierceness was the third choice at 7-2. 3-1, Torpedo Anna was the second choice. Dornoch ran fourth at 9-2. It was a great race. And as you say, the Kentucky Derby, which was number 2 on your list at the Bloodhorse, was also very good, again, with Mystic Dan. But Sierra Leone and Forever Young right there as well. So, again, I thought the top 5 very good. And Bob, before we let you go, when I contacted you, I said get some Eclipse thoughts as well. We're less than a week away from the announcement. You kind of tipped your hand a little bit, but I don't think it was a surprise to any of us. Torpedo Anna seems like a shoe-in for Horse of the Year.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I don't see who else you think can really have had a betting year. I mean, she did lose in the Travers, but you got to give her mega bonus points for attempting to run against the boys. She did win the Breeders' Cup, beating the older fillies. I think the only horse that might have had a chance to be up there with it might have been Fierceness. Had Fierceness been able to close out the year with the Travers and the Breeders' Cup Classic, beating Torpedo Anna, maybe he might have been in there with her too. But once Sierra Leone won the Classic, that I think pretty much made it almost a no-brainer that it's going to be Torpedo Anna.
What did you do in the 3-year-old male? That was an interesting category, and I have a feeling it's going to be Sierra Leone with the Breeders' Cup Classic. I tilted that way, and I think that's how it's going to shake out. But how did you see 3-year-old male?
I'm the same way. It was one of those picks you spent a little extra time on trying to figure out. But I because the Travers was such a big race, and that was won by Fierceness. But I think the Breeders' Cup Classic was indeed that was the race of the year against the older horses, and that went to Sierra Leone. I mean, he look at it. He got beat a nose in the Derby. He wins the Breeders' Cup Classic. Those are basically the two biggest dirt races of the year. And he ran, a win and a second by a nose. Fierceness is going to be the main competition. He was second in the Classic, ran a hell of a race in the Classic because he really ran into some tough fractions, but he was nowhere in the Kentucky Derby. So, the Travers win was big, but I think when you put together the Classic, he did win it. He did win another Grade 1 in the Bluegrass, and then just falling a nose short of the Kentucky Derby. The only thing that really kind of worked against him, he may not have been at his best at Saratoga. I mean, the 3 races at Saratoga just were not really his best races. So maybe there was just one track he didn't like. I don't know if he's going to run in the Whitney next year because of that, but I did give it to Sierra Leone.
Yeah, and as I say, I think that's the way it's going to tilt. It's going to be fun Thursday night. There were a couple of categories. Both of the sprint categories, male and female, were a tough one for me. There were a few categories that I think were kind of slam dunks. It's going to be fun to see how it plays out Thursday night. Bob, always appreciate the conversation. We recommend people swing by America's Best Racing. You can find Bob's work there, but mainly you find Bob over at the Bloodhorse. So check that out. But Bob, we appreciate it. We'll talk again.
Look forward to it, Seth. Take care.
Bob Ehalt, again, Bloodhorse, America's Best Racing, and beyond. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we will be joined by Joe Kristufek. Again, you see him down at the fairgrounds, pregame, paddock commentary and whatnot. Caught up with him yesterday and went through all the stakes on the fairgrounds card today. So stay tuned. All of that right after this.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew. to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Another big stakes day on the season down at the fairgrounds, highlighted by Lecomte. But as usual with these big stakes days, multiple divisions covered, lots of great stakes action. So who better to reach out to than our friend Joe Kristufek? You see him down pregame show, paddock commentary, and more. Joe, good morning.
Good morning.
Division. So it's fun to follow along during the season.
Yeah, for sure. And the supporting races are always good. I know we start, the card with a few Louisiana-bred races at the front end, which are also of high quality and intrigue, particularly if you follow the circuit. We've got some key maiden races on the card in addition to the 6 stakes, all that should have an impact moving forward. So you got, for the most part, full field in the vast majority of these races, too, before scratches. So you're looking forward to digging in. I think there's a lot of opportunities to stick our teeth into.
I was watching, I think it was yesterday, I was watching the simulcast, and you guys posted a nice chart. And I'm curious if it's up on social media so people can check it out. But you had a chart on how the jockeys were doing in Louisiana bred races. And I found the whole concept kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm on the air, and watching Florent Giroux win all these Louisiana bred races last meet and this meet, and I just sparked an idea in my head to try to get those statistics, and I dialed up Ed DeRose at Horse Racing Nation. They have a sponsorship with us, and they're able to pull stats up pretty quickly and easily and provide us a graphic. And yeah, Florent Giroux's winning like 30% when he's on in a Louisiana bred race, and positive ROI and et cetera, et cetera. And you see Florent or Irad Ortiz or Brian Hernandez get on a Louisiana bred, chances are that horse in that race got a pretty good chance.
Yeah, as I say, it was fascinating to see it parsed out like that. Also, we're recording this on Friday, so these stats I'm looking at are at the end of the day on Thursday going into Friday. But Mr. Jose Ortiz, good job on the decision to come down to the fairgrounds. He is currently just having a great meet. He has 44 wins. In second, Loveberry has 26. So it's a 29, again, going into Friday's card. So it's just been a great meet for Jose Ortiz. And I will say over on the trainer's side, this is going to be fun to watch during the season. Going into Friday, Asmussen and Amos tied with 12. Brad Cox right behind with 11. Joe Sharp with 10. And there's 3 tied at 9. Shane Wilson, who got up to such the crazy start last year, he has 9. Cherie DeVoe has 9. And Sam David has 9. Again, the human side of things always interesting to me, with Ortiz looking very good early, but the trainer meet, the trainer title, I think is going to be fun to follow through the entire meet.
And Tom's won a bunch of them over the years. Brad Cox has won a handful. Shane Wilson is the defending champion, as you mentioned. We've got a lot of high percentage trainers here. Cherie DeVoe, you mentioned, Joe Sharp. People that are training winners at a 25% clip that probably don't have the volume necessarily to win the title. You would think Steve and Brad would probably be the favorites because not only do they have stakes horses, but they have got younger horses that are willing to drop into spots to get wins. And you think that would be the way it would play out. But there's been a lot of, evenness across the board when it comes to the distribution of winners. Outside of Jose Ortiz, who's been dominating, the jockey standings too, pretty close for the minor awards.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to follow, certainly. You and I were talking before we went on the air. Again, we're taping this on Friday. Earlier this week, the weather forecast looked a little dicey, but it seems like it's maybe a little bit better going into Saturday.
That's what I always tell people when they talk about the weather forecast, week 6, even 5 days out. It can change pretty quickly and easily around here, and the chances of rain have kind of, gone down day by day. Maybe a little bit late, like you mentioned, we are recording this on Friday, maybe a little bit late today, this afternoon, this evening, and then maybe some tomorrow morning. But, you can't control Mother Nature. We've preached that time and time again when we talk, on this show, Seth, and we'll have to see what happens. But certainly very, very hopeful, more hopeful than we were couple of days ago. And, if we do run on the turf tomorrow and we get limited rain, should be in really, really good shape because we haven't had any rain here for a couple of days now.
And that's always helpful for the turf course. All right, let's kick off, and we'll just go chronological order through the 6 stakes on the afternoon. It'll kick off, the stakes action will kick off in race number 6, the Kenner, $100,000 up for grabs, sprinting on the grass. I was telling you before we went on the air, I was reading an article by Marcus Hirsch in the Daily Racing Forum. It looks like No Balls may elect to pass being based up at Turfway with the threat of the weather. Larry Ravelli wasn't sure. Again, check for certain. I have No Balls in the mix. But I thought Mischievous Rogue was a little bit interesting, coming off the nice try last time at Churchill, was claimed, goes into the barn of Brittany Vandenberg. Interesting. I think it'll offer a little bit of value. Demolition Duke has the aforementioned Jose Ortiz on board for Brendan Walsh. That was intriguing to me. And then I put No Balls again in the 3rd spot if he shows up. But how did you see things in the Kenner?
Yeah, I mean, if No Ball shows up, it's a completely different race, class-wise and complexion-wise, with him being the speed from the rail. The horses that you mentioned are in really good form, Demolition Duke and also Mischievous Rogue. They're, a little bit deeper out the back closers. And if you look past No Ball, there's not a lot of speed in here with the exception maybe of Bear River or Ravelli's other horse, Uncashed, who's got the good speed and probably answered more for dirt than turf.
Yeah.
I kind of like, honestly, Gilded Ruler a little bit for Joe Sharp. He's really improved in recent starts. His most recent effort was probably the best of his career. And I think although he likes to come from off the pace too, I think he can get first run on horses like Demolition Duke and Mischievous Rogue. So if No Ball is indeed not running, Gilded Ruler probably going to be the top choice for me.
Interesting. And it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out odds-wise too if that No Balls goes out. And again, just quickly, I had some dirt thoughts if it does move over. I used the Larry Ravelli, the other one, who I think, as you say, I think is probably aimed for the dirt. Uncashed, the number 7. I also thought Kavad was maybe a little bit interesting on dirt, and Gil Crease and Over Ollie. So there's some horses to think about if we do get moved over to the main track. Also on turf tomorrow, the Marie Krantz Memorial, race number 8, $100,000 for the ladies, going a mile and a 16th. I pulled up a replay of Austere winning back in November at Fairgrounds. The Brendan Walsh runner coming off of that win, I think is intriguing. But I used number 9 on top, Ghostly Gal. Wayne Catalano, the Catman, had a win streak snapped last time at Turfway. I think Ghostly Gal is very intriguing at a price, and also at a price strikingly spun with Frankie Dettori on board for Joe Sharp. And then Cupid's Crush, an interesting player for me as well, for Mac Robertson. I think it has the potential to be a fun race. What did you see in the Krantz Memorial?
Yeah, I mean, if we are on the turf and this race remains intact, this is one of the best betting races on the entire card set. You mentioned Ghostly Gal. She was really good when she won a turf at Churchill prior to the Turfway race. That was a claiming crown race, defeating the odds-on favorite Dana's Beauty, who has since come back to win. The horse Boom and Bell, who ran 3rd, has since come back to win here at Fairgrounds. She's a pretty nice Louisiana bred. I think there's a potential monster in this field, and she's going to have to negotiate post position number 13, Nanda Dea. And if you didn't see that race, Seth from Keeneland from mid-October, she looks like she has the potential to be an absolute monster. She was really live on the Toport. You see the final odds at 3-1. She was really live prior to that. You got some float up to 3-1 before all is said and done on the wagering. She was a little bit eager early. She was loaded late on the far turn, like Jose Ortiz just couldn't wait to unleash her. And when he did, she absolutely kicked home and looked like a good horse doing it. Obviously has a lot of Argentinian class, and Ignacio Correas has brought over a lot of these kinds of horses in the past that have done really well. But there are 3 or 4 in here that I think will offer some fair value. I don't know if Nanda Dea is going to be in that 5-1 range or not. Tough post for her, but I'm super excited to see her run. Yeah,
I usually take a wait-and-see attitude with the South American runners, but this one had the wait-and-see win. So I was there, but as you were talking, I was looking, and I have the notes right next to it. If this horse had a better post, I would have been a little more on board. It comes from the outside-ish 13. But it's Jose Ortiz, and 7 wins and 9 starts, including the win last time, but most of those in South America. I may regret leaving that one out. But I'll also toss out, should it go to the dirt, I had 11, 6, and 5. I think number 11, Trying My Heart Out, will be interesting on the main track. The 5 and the 6, I think, could be players as well. Again, if it gets moved over, but we have our fingers crossed that will not happen. All right. On the dirt, scheduled on the dirt, the Silver Bullet Day. Again, the comp comes up later for the 3-year-old boys. The Silver Bullet Day is for the 3-year-old fillies going 1 mile and 70. I pulled up a replay here going back to the end of December. Go Well's Delight in the career debut. Nice looking debut win at the fairgrounds, 2 turns for Ken McPeak. Ken McPeak elects to, he's a guy who will push the envelope and be ambitious. But I like that, and I think there'll be a little bit of a price there. Golden Gamble, the other McPeak horse, is maybe a little more logical. Simply Joking with the buyer figure is going to take a lot of action, but it'll be the first time around 2 turns after the debut win. Chasing from Brad Cox. It's a field of 8, but I think it's a fun field in the Silver Bullet Day. What did you see?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go here. I think Chasen will probably be the actual favorite. There was a lot of hype on her going into her debut for Brad Cox, and she had a trouble trip, still managed to win. And, the dam lockdown was 3rd in the Kentucky Oaks. Chasen is a half the idiomatic, so she's got the pedigree for Juddmonte. Simply Joking, so she won the L'Atelier as a maiden, a first-time starter. And Whit Beckman had said going into the race and post-race that he thought Simply Joking was more talented than Her Laugh. And Her Laugh went gate to wire in the Untappable later on in the card. Now, he is represented here by Simply Joking, who's by Practical Joke. We'll see whether or not the 2 turns winds up working in her favor or not. But I think she's an exciting prospect moving forward for Whit Beckman, who's also got Drexel Hill, who I think is a little bit of a sleeper. She ran better than it looks on the Untappable. She's getting blinkers on for the first time. And I agree with you on Go Well's Delight. That caught us all off guard, all by surprise when she won on debut. And, she looked really, really good doing it. She was still in hand at the top of the stretch, opened up like a good thing, hand ride in the final 16th of a mile. So Go Well's Delight, another one that I think you got to keep your eye on. It's interesting that Colby Hernandez is on Go Well's Delight. Brian Hernandez is on Golden Gamble, who was the beaten favorite in the Untappable, and she could easily bounce back. She ran pretty well that day, having to close into a methodical pace that Her Laugh was just coasting on early on.
Yeah, that's one thing that did come into my thinking, and I was a little bit leery. Brian Hernandez is on the Golden Gamble part of the uncoupled entry, and that's kind of more McPeak's go-to guy. Certainly, they combined for the Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby last year, but I still think the Go Well's Delight again, in a very interesting edition of the Silver Bullet Day. 10th race, we're back on the turf in the Colonel Bradley. We're going 8.5 furlongs on the turf. For the 4-year-olds and up. I pulled up a replay here going back to the Buddy Diliberto Memorial in December. It's going to be the number 2 horse getting it done under Jose Ortiz as the 4-5 favorite. And Gigante for Steve Asmussen looks pretty good in here this afternoon. But I'm going to put Northern Invader on top for Cherie DeVoe. Our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds have a nice runner here, I think. And hasn't been seen since Saratoga. That, to me, is the question mark. It's a relatively long layoff. Gigante, obviously, at the replay we watched, has a little more recency. But I'm going to take this shot with Northern Invader over Gigante. And then in the third spot, I'll take a look at I'd Rather Be Blessed for Chris Hartman, who comes off a nice try at the fairgrounds in the Diliberto as well. What did you think in the Bradley?
Man, another great betting race. I'm going to give a slight edge to Wadsworth, kind of the same angle that you used earlier with the Catalano horse in the female race, with coming in from Turfway. Those races are worth quite a bit of money, almost $250,000 in the Prairie Bayou. And, he was wide the entire trip that day. and just kind of flattened out a little bit in the stretch. Probably a horse, honestly, Seth, that prefers turf over synthetic. I thought the comeback race at Churchill, where he narrowly missed to a razor sharp chasing the crown, was a very good performance for Wadsworth. And, he just turned 5, and I think he's still got some upside moving forward. So going to give him a slight edge over several others that I think are viable contenders. Gigante being an obvious one. I think Stitch for Greg Foley is a little bit sneaky. He's been sprinting recently, but I do think he's a better horse around 2 turns, and he's going to offer a massive price. So I would certainly recommend giving him a second look if you're playing the exactas, the tries, and the supers.
Very good. And again, Northern Invader, if it does go to the dirt, I had Northern Invader on top, but I subsequently read Cherie DeVoe as saying maybe if it goes to the dirt, we won't go. But there are a couple of early races that were okay. Higgins Boat, I think, is going to be okay on the dirt. Duke of Carthania. But one I left out was Gigante, who I think on the dirt may wind up to be okay as well. So again, I didn't have it in my dirt picks, but I may regret that. But I think there are a few in there you could take a look at should it get washed off. But again, we got the fingers crossed weather-wise that we stay on the proper surface, as it were. In the 11th, we're looking at the Louisiana older horses on the main track, 8.5 furlongs. I pulled up a replay here going back to November at Del Mar. We'll look at the Native Diver. It's going to be number 3, Skinner, getting it done. Subsequently, Skinner sent to the fairgrounds and into the barn of Cherie DeVoe. The race we're watching was being trained by John Sheriffs out in Southern California. But Skinner's interesting to me. I'm going to take a kind of a wild pop with Warrior Johnny. Phil Bauer had a great Saratoga, and so I'm still kind of stuck with that really nice season in my brain. And this one comes in off a couple of races that I think are kind of promising and maybe worth a shot. Skinner underneath, Hit Show underneath, Track Phantom is interesting. Again, another fun race on the card. How did you see the Louisiana?
Yeah, again, a lot of different ways you could go here. And some of the favorites, look somewhat obvious, at least to the extent where you're pretty confident they're going to run well, but are also kind of the horses that you want to try to beat. Hit Show being the morning line favorite, probably the most reliable horse in here. But I think, honestly, Seth, he's probably a better horse at 9 furlongs. Yeah. A mile and the 16th might be a little sharp. Pipeline, the other Cherie DeVoe, is interesting. Ran in the Cigar Mile last out. The pace was fast, 45-1. He was in contention to the top of the stretch before he got swallowed up by good horses. Lock, Mulligan, post time amongst those. Luis Saez, you're pretty certain that this horse is going to be put on the lead and might be in a position to slow things down up front. Maycock's Bay for Mike Stidham was really good when he won here December the 7th. I know they're excited about running him against stakes competition. This is the horse that was looking forward to joining the Kentucky Derby Trail last year before he had a little bit of a setback. So the horse that I'm excited about seeing run in this particular race. And I know Cherie is excited about running Skinner as well. There was some talk about, maybe the Pegasus World Cup, and she thought that was biting off a little bit more than they could chew with this horse at this point. But she thinks this is a good starting point for the first start for her barn to kind of get a feel for Skinner and what he's all about moving forward.
Again, it's a really nice field in here, and you can go a bunch of different directions and probably have a similar level of confidence or lack thereof, as it were. And we'll wrap up the stakes section with the Lecomte. Again, the highlight on the day this time of year. Excuse me, we're taking our first steps on the Derby Trail. First to the Louisiana Derby, subsequently, hopefully, onto the Kentucky Derby. But the Lecomte is for the 3-year-olds. $250,000, grade 3 event, mile and a 16th. I'm going to pull up a replay from the Gun Runner earlier in the meet. We're going to look at the number 1 Built over the number 3 Magnitude. And my personal top pick was Magnitude. Built, again, sometimes we get too clever and try to switch things up, but they come out exactly the same way. But again, the post position for me was a little bit of a negative with Built. Now down there you have that long stretch that maybe mitigates things. But I'll put Magnitude over Maximum Promise for Ken McPeak innovator at a price, and built. What did you see in the LeCompte?
Yeah, it's interesting because Bilt had the rail and the gun runner. He pretty much walked on the lead that particular day. But from post 13, they're not going to be intent on trying to cross over and make the lead. There's so much speed potentially drawn inside of him with the likes of Innovator, who's certainly going to go stretching out of sprint from the rail for Wayne Lucas, Maximum Promise, several others that like to go forward. Tough Catch, Dapper Moon both stretching out. Disco Time is stretching out, who's got to be considered a major player for Brad Cox. Certainly has the physical look to him like he wants to be a two-turn horse. I'm going right back to Bilt, though, Seth. I think that he can get decent position in and out of that first turn, because I don't think he needs to be on the lead. I think he can sit third, fourth, fifth, sixth early behind what should be a contested pace. And if you watch the gun runner, man, he did everything perfect. Like, he responded right when he was asked by the rider. He extended his stride. He galloped out huge, just, left magnitude pretty much in his dust that particular day. And the other horse I like a little bit is Golden Afternoon. Nick Baca raced first career start as a trainer, 25 years old, Carlos' son, and it would be a great debut as a public trainer to win a graded stakes and gain points to the Kentucky Derby. And I know this horse has only been on turf, but if you watch the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund website workouts that Bruno DiGiulio and his team post up there, Golden Afternoon had a huge workout here on January the 3rd in Company on the dirt, where he looked like he had the potential to be a good dirt horse. He's got some dirt influences in the pedigree, and that's my long shot for the LeCompte Golden Afternoon. And if he wins, it will be one. I don't care what the weather says.
That would be a great way to kick off the training career. I read about the passing of the torch in one of the publications earlier this week. Can you imagine that? To step up and get the LeCompte victory in your first, first few days as a trainer. That would be a story in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is the way that it was all planned out. This would be the first starter. It's a great way to get your name out there, right? There was already a great story about Nicholas and the Bloodhorse, and if he were to win this race, I'm sure he'd get a lot of extremely positive publicity. And quite honestly, from what I've seen, I think it's possible.
Looking forward to the entire day, and wishing you and everybody down there a great afternoon. We'll be tuned in pre-game, as they say. You can see Joe and the team down there. And before each race in the paddock commentary, you continue to tout you guys when you're up at Churchill, and then you move a lot of those things down to Fairgrounds as well, the various discussions you have. I always feel like watching you guys in the paddock or the pregame, it's like sitting at the track out in the backyard at Saratoga with a group of people before the races, talking and pointing different things out. It's always a lot of fun. And Joe, as always, before we let you go, any updates on Brilliant Racing, your racing partnership? You have anything coming up?
We got 3 horses left in the partnership. We haven't started a new one in a couple of years now. So we've got 3 left. And Dual Guru has entered the run Sunday, but I don't think he's going to run. I think we're going to scratch. He had a little bit of a setback in his training. He'll probably use another work or two. So I don't think he's going to run. But we think we can win a couple of races with him over the winter. He's a Louisiana bred who's got a little bit of talent, named for the incomparable John G. Dooley himself. Then we've got Johnny's Fireball, who's by far our best horse. We own him with Justin Nicholson as part of his group, the A.J. Sudik group, and David Levitch and the DC Racing and Brilliant are partners on Johnny's Fireball. He actually enters Saturday, which is LeCompte Day, to run at Sam Houston in the Connolly, going 1.5 miles. And his last win at Churchill was probably the best in his career. We've been wanting to try him at 1.5 miles, so we're going to give him that opportunity. And then Spider Woman, who's a nice filly that we have with Michelle Lovell, she's on the comeback trail. She's beginning to slowly gear back up in her training. But with the winter they've had in Kentucky, Seth, it's been tough for anybody to train the last few weeks. So we just got to remain patient with her. We think she's a maiden special weight winner and eventually an allowance horse. And, you're patient with these horses, a lot of times it pays off.
Always fun to watch the brilliant racing horses run. I know over the years you've had some local folks involved, so we wish you a lot of luck with Johnny's Fireball, certainly, and all the others going forward. Joe, as always, appreciate the visit. We'll talk again.
Yep, sounds good. Best of luck to everybody today. Should be a fun and hopefully a profitable day of racing at Fairgrounds.
Joe Kristufek from the Fairgrounds on a big day of action down in New Orleans. Welcome back. Thanks to Joe Kristufek for joining us again. He joined us yesterday, and we were a little up in the air as far as the situation with weather. And let me just see if I can grab it again, because I checked the Fairgrounds website a moment ago. I checked the Fairgrounds Twitter feed. Let me pull it up again. Upshot is they are off the turf, and they kind of just announced it a few minutes ago. Like an hour ago, they were still weather is predicted to moderate out, and so we're still waiting on a decision. And again, that was about an hour ago. But then, just as I say, within the last 20 minutes or 15 or 20, while that interview was going, they announced they will be off the turf, sloppy track and off the turf. Again, an hour or so ago, they said the rain is forecast to clear out in the next hour or so we'll have an update on track conditions, status of the turf races. That, again, was maybe a little more than an hour ago, and then just a few minutes ago, off the turf down at the Fairgrounds. If you go to, and I mentioned as we handicapped some of the dirt selections, and again, you will hear updated if you watch the Fairgrounds Signal. Joe and the team down there will update for dirt selections, obviously. But I mentioned my dirt thoughts during the interview. But if you go to capitalotb.com, click on the handicapping link, then the handicapper support, you can get the one sheet. And again, should mention that more often. That's available most racing days on capitalotb.com. The one sheet, Brian Edo has his matrix for Gulfstream this time of year. I'll typically look at a couple of tracks, Aqueduct and Gulfstream, typically this time of year. But on a big day like this, there's also Fairgrounds on the sheet, including dirt selections for the turf races. So you can check that out at the website. Again, $28,000 pick six carryover at Aqueduct today. And I mentioned earlier, it was they only paid to 4 out of 6, consolation yesterday. And I said a lot of that probably played into the finale. And again, congratulations to our friend Steve Bick with his DT Stables and Company and their Landauer. Gary Siaka training, Katie Davis on board. Landauer gets it done. Gets up in the shadow of the wire, but still gets up. So again, congratulations to Steve and Company. $80.50 clearly had to play into that carryover yesterday. But again, it was fun to see, Steve get the victory in the winner's circle. He was down there yesterday to celebrate. So good on them. Landauer getting it done with the DT car. His silks are really nice. Also want to alert you, news came out, I think I read it last night. I saw it again this morning, but I think it was already out, that it's going to be cold over the next few days over a wide swath of the country. So Mahoning, Monday, of course, is a holiday, Martin Luther King Day. So some of the bigger tracks were scheduled, but Mahoning on a regular schedule, they've already canceled Monday and Tuesday in anticipation of the very cold weather. So Mahoning, no Monday, no Tuesday, but Oaklawn has canceled Monday as well, the holiday card. However, they will come back a day early. They've taken the Monday card and moved it to Thursday. So there'll be Thursday action at Oaklawn next week. So keep that in mind. Let me also alert you to what is coming up promo-wise here at Capital OTB TV. Don't forget the Turfway Bounty Bet. Pick 5 at Turfway. You can see a couple $100 in there. Congratulations to the winner from a few days ago. Collected not only the payout on the Pick 5, but $800 from the bounty. So we started over a couple of days ago, and it's now up to a couple $100. Play the early Pick 5. You have to play it with your Capital OTB bet account. and you'll get a shot at that bounty. Also today, a calendar giveaway right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Come on down. First 75 paid admissions will get a nice NYRA calendar. It's a good-looking calendar. I have one right here with nice photos in there, as you would expect, on the various months. So again, your 2025 NYRA calendar available today here at the Clubhouse Racebook for the first 75 paid admissions. And also want to remind you that today, Kennedy's Tavern Easy Bet is a fan appreciation day. Swing on by if you're a patron out in that area so we can say thank you to you. There'll be food, vouchers, PPs, a contest where you can win a little extra something, extra fun, and our chance to say thank you to you. Fan Appreciation Day today at the Kennedy's Tavern Easy Bet in Troy. All right, I'm looking up at my monitor up there, and it looks like they're kicking things off with the NYRA feed. So 12:10 post time in New York. I'll be back live. And I should remind you, this week, the afternoon I've been coming in taped in the morning, and then we're kind of sitting in here and we're pumping out some social media content. So if you check our Twitter feed, Instagram, YouTube, we're kind of jumping in and doing some social media things on the weekdays, and then weekends I'll be in here live. So lucky you get to see me live a little bit later this afternoon. And I'll be back in about an hour or so, kick things off for OTB Live for Saturday afternoon. So thanks for tuning in this morning. We'll see you in a few. We would like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park's championship meet runs now through March 30th with high-quality action throughout, including the Florida Derby on Saturday, March 29th.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.
Race 6, beginning of the late pick 4. Scratch the 7, St. James.